something better to look at. Let me know.
Guys, it's Sodomy Month. Yup, today is the first day of Sodomy Month, a month-long holiday instituted by the Globo Homo regime.
So this is I guess what he'll do sometimes is he'll take stuff from his older videos and use it as B-roll on his lives and stuff. So that's what this is. So let's just skip this part because I don't really care. Let's hear what he's saying today. I was watching part of this, but I missed it. But it was weird because he was talking about the gifts and stuff.
70% of the Bible consists of the Old Testament. And so I want to go through and tell you about the Old Testament and how it was written, how it was compiled. And so let's start with the beginning of the Old Testament, which is the Torah. So the Torah are the books that we know today as the book of Genesis, the book of Leviticus, the book of Numbers, and Deuteronomy. All right. And so the Torah, the word Torah is the Hebrew word for the law, right? Whenever we see the law in the New Testament, like it says in Galatians 2:16, a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. What it's talking about, if you were to translate that to Hebrew, the law would be translated to Torah. A man is not saved by the works of Torah, but by the faith of Jesus Christ, right? And the Torah, essentially, it's the books of Moses, and it contains all of the 613 commandments, including the 10 commandments in the Torah, right? And so the Torah kind of covers the beginning of, the whole creation, and then the beginning of the nation of Israel, and then finally the story of Moses as he leads the Israelites out of Egypt and into the promised land, where they establish the nation of Israel. Now, many people claim that the Torah was based on some kind of oral tradition, but this is not true. In the book of Deuteronomy.
Anyway, I just want to say, look, before we go on, he's going to talk about some other stuff. I just want to make it clear. Like, he's right that the Torah is the first 5 books, the Pentateuch. That's what the Jews would refer to as the Torah. Okay, but it's also much more than that. It's not merely the law of Moses, right? It's clearly not, because it's the first 5 books, which includes stories, which includes songs. It includes lots of information in those first 5 books. It's not merely the law, right? So another way of translating that word Torah is instruction. And so a lot of the Torah, when they say Torah, a lot of times they're not just talking about the law of Moses. They're talking about God's instruction. And so in a way, kind of like the whole Bible is the Torah, in that sense, that it's teaching you. And that's why you'll see in Psalm 1, for instance, it'll say that blessed is the man who meditates on the Torah day and night. Psalm 1 verse 2. And it's because the Torah is not just the law, it's like all the things God is trying to teach you, And by meditating on that, you can become wise, you can be blessed. I think it's important to judge the sincerity of someone's acts, especially if they're purporting a change of morality shortly after their misdeeds have been made known. He's made no act of contrition. Who, this guy? I don't know.
Now, many people claim that the Torah was based on some kind of oral tradition, but this is not true. In the book of Deuteronomy, at the end, we actually get God commanding Moses to write down.
Oh, sorry. So this is about Russell Brand. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not judging him because he's a degenerate. I'm certainly not judging Russell Brand for being a degenerate. I was a degenerate for most of my life, so whatever that means, right? But I was certainly not. I'm not like judging him for that. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But I think what we're saying about Russell Brand is that he's very fake about his so-called conversion. For instance, he'll say stuff like, I accepted Jesus into my heart, or things like that. He doesn't say, I believe in Jesus for everlasting life. He doesn't talk like that. And so he doesn't explain the gospel properly, and it's very weird. And I think he's a shill. Still, I think he remains a shill. That's all I would say about him. I don't think he's like, I'm not judging him for his past deeds or anything like that.
Tradition, but this is not true. In the book of Deuteronomy, at the end, we actually get God commanding Moses to write down what he had experienced in his life and write down the book of Genesis onto a scroll. And so that is recorded within the Torah, which at one time was one scroll. And Jews still read the Torah today as one scroll, from Genesis to Deuteronomy, one continuous piece of paper that's like 100-foot long. And so he wrote it all down onto a scroll. And so this information was not an oral tradition that was telephoned down the line. It was God directly commanding Moses what to write towards the end of his life before he died.
I believe this also, right? But I mean, I would like, look, this is the thing. So scholars now, they don't believe, or most of them don't believe, that Moses wrote the Pentateuch, right? And most traditionalists do believe that. I believe that. But I would say that we're allowed to kind of understand that there was some additions, some changes made to the Pentateuch after Moses died. It seems clear. Unless you want to suggest that God literally told Moses the story of his own death and burial, which is found in Deuteronomy, I think 33 or 34. If you see that chapter, you'll see the death of Moses there. He died. And then it says that he buried him, which sounds like God buried him or something. I don't know who buried him, right? But it sounds like God did. But the fact is, you read about Moses' death and burial in the Pentateuch. So this is why some people suggest, and I would agree with them, that there's some parts of the book which were like written in later. It's not entirely written by him, you know? I would suggest that most of it's written by him, but I do think it's reasonable to suggest that parts of it were added later, or parts of it was edited also. I think you can see that there does seem to be some editings going on, you know?
That was telephoned down the line. It was God directly commanding Moses what to write towards the end of his life before he died, right? And so the Torah was passed down in written format by scribes who would take the Torah as it was starting to degenerate and would hand copy it onto a new scroll, 100-foot wide scroll, copy the whole Torah down letter.
Anyway, this is boring. So later on, he talks about how he's like, how he has the power of healing or something like that. So that's why I was kind of interested later on. Anyway, so he already made a mistake by trying to say the Torah is entirely written by Moses, and also his explanation of what the Torah is not very good, but it's okay, whatever. It's not the worst thing I've heard out of this guy. But then he has some other weird stuff, and then he has alive. Oh, this is beyond weird, all the stuff this guy talks about. Actually, let's see this. This is beyond weird, dude. Is there a speed thing on this? Okay.
By letter. And so they would also make additional copies of it. Included in the Bible are the books of Solomon. Now, Solomon was the king of Israel who came after David, and it says in the Bible that Solomon was the wisest man in all the world. And so Solomon was, a scholar, right? And he did a lot of studying. And Solomon wrote many, many, many books. Today, we only have about what is it? We have like, I want to say 10 of Solomon's books, and some of Solomon's books which we have.
10 of Solomon's books? How do we have 10 of Solomon's books? Let's see. We have the book of Proverbs, the book of Ecclesiastes, the Song of Solomon. And some people will say, yeah, the book of Job is written by him. Why does this guy think that there's 10 books? Like, why would you even say that?
We don't know if they're actually Solomon's books or they're just someone pretending to be Solomon, but the books that we know for sure are written by Solomon are the books which are included in the Bible, which would be Proverbs,
because he's trying to suggest that there's some other books like the Wisdom of Solomon and books like that, which are apocryphal and which we don't include in our Bible, but Catholics do. So he's maybe they were kind of. I guess that's what he's saying. And if you guys tell me if this is boring, we can move on to somebody else. But I just thought, I don't know, I like to harass this guy. It just annoys me that he just teaches all this weird stuff. But let's see what he was saying in the live. In the live, it was super weird because he was talking about how he supposedly can heal people and
Brothers in
stuff.
Christ, again, let's go. We're so back. I should have put something in my hair. My hair is just my normal straight white people hair, and so now my hair just looks like a bowl cut because that's basically what it is. Because I tried to cut my own hair and failed. Anyways, what's going on, people? What's going on? We are live again, reading the Bible, and that's what we're here to do. We are here to read.
Actually, this guy looks good in a bowl cut. You know, people will literally put a bowl on their head and just cut around, and actually, it looks good on a hood. I'll say that.
The Bible. I'm here to kick ass and read the Bible, and I'm all out of ass, so I'm gonna read the Bible. Nigga. We just gotta make sure that we get a community guideline straight. Like right away, I just have to say like the N word or the F word. We can say faggot. We can say what other slurs? What other slurs? Dyke. What other slurs? Cracker. But you won't get banned for saying cracker because YouTube hates white people. So you only get banned for saying nigga or like spick. But we love all people, even though we say racial and sexual slurs. We love all people. Okay, all people should be proud of who they are, and all people can go to heaven.
Well, it's funny how he'll be like, "Oh, we love all people. We don't hate by race and stuff." But then he's telling me, he literally called me a brown piece of S, right? He called me that, you know? It's like, dude, it's like you're just saying that. You're just saying that because it makes you sound better to say that. But then you turn around and use all this racist language and stuff because you really are kind of racist. It's just that you're not like, I don't know. Anyway,
They simply put their faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. And no matter how you look, we can talk about being gay later, okay? But no matter how you look, you shouldn't be ashamed of it because God made you that way, nigga. You hear that, spick? God made you this way, and you should be proud of what God has done. If there's any boasting to be done, boast in the Lord Jesus Christ. You dirty. Okay, that's fucked up. But it's real. It's literally real. It's literally real. God made everyone from one man, Adam, and from this, well, really, technically, he made us all from Noah, right? All of us, they are all descended from Noah. But from one man, he separated out all people groups and appointed their time to have.
How did he make us all from Noah if Adam was what are you talking about, dude? Now the people now, okay, now today, now we're all descended from Noah, descended from him. But it's really all humans of all time are descended from Adam, right? But anyway, so later on he starts talking about like the gifts or something. Let me see. John chapter 9. That's not about the gifts.
Prayed to God for God to heal him. And the doctor said he had a miraculous healing and that his blood clot disintegrated. It just went away. I don't know how it happened. I know how it happened.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, okay. This is the part I was watching. He's talking about how his dad had a blood clot or something. And he prayed and that, and then his dad was healed. So therefore he's saying that he has the touch of healing. But let's go back to this because he begins his talk about John chapter 9 around here somewhere. So let's see what he said.
One says, I can attest to the venomous snakes. I got near one when I was walking with my sister, but it didn't bite me. It just gave me a rattle and it walked away. As we walked away, sorry. I had a venomous snake wrap itself around my leg a couple of weeks ago now. I was walking because I live in the and just 9. Now, just to recap, in John chapter 7, John chapter 8, Jesus goes up to Jerusalem for the Feast of Tabernacles, or what the Jews call Sukkot, right? And Feast of Tents, right? To put it in modern English, where the Jews don't live in the tents. If you ever go to New York City, like, I don't even know where Jews live in New York, but like I think Queens, some of them do, and some of them live in like the Bronx. I've seen anyways. Some of them, like the poorer and lower end Jews, and they'll have like the tents in the balconies. Well, so it's that holiday in Jerusalem, and Jesus goes there and he's preaching the gospel, and the Jews are calling him a false prophet, saying he's a worker of the devil, saying that he is the devil himself. And the Jews end up getting into an argument with him, and Jesus says that the Jews, the reason why they don't believe in him is because they don't actually believe what their Bible says, what their Torah, what their Tanakh says. They don't actually believe in it, and they believe in a false God. And Jesus calls them the children of their father, the devil. So he calls them children of the devil. So that's what we read about in the last chapter. And now we're moving into chapter 9, still in Jerusalem, around the Mount of Olives. And so let's just start reading, right? So, as Jesus passed by, we're in verse 1, right? Verse 1 here. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. So this man was born blind. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, right here, this passage, this little couple of verses here, is the ultimate answer to the whole sinful nature question. For those of you that don't know, most Christians, except for like the Eastern Orthodox and a few Baptists, very few, but there are a few Baptists, they believe that humans have a sinful nature. And what that means is that from birth, they are cursed with Adam's sin, and that they're basically sinners from birth. Like when they are born, when a baby is conceived and when they're born, they are sinful. And if the baby doesn't like get baptized or something, then they will go to hell. And this is what most Christians believe. Now, Baptists don't believe that, but most Christians.
If a baby isn't baptized, they'll go to hell. I don't think most Christians believe that, Hood. I think you should rethink your view of most Christians.
Basically sinners from birth. Like when they are born, when a baby is conceived and when they are born, they are sinful. And if the baby doesn't like get baptized or something, then they will go to hell. And this is what most
Christians don't believe that, Hood. Most Christians do not believe that. Okay, I think there's some Christians. Maybe the Catholics believe that. I don't even know, but I'm pretty sure that most Protestants believe in some kind of version of the age of accountability idea. So, which you often will talk about, which you didn't just make that up. That was something you heard from other Christians, right? So why are you thinking that most Christians believe that babies go to hell when most Christians do not? Why are you saying this?
Adam's sin and that they're basically sinners from birth. Like when they are born, when a baby is conceived and when they are born, they are sinful. And if the baby doesn't like get baptized or something, then they will go to hell. And this is what most Christians believe. Now, Baptists don't believe that, but most Christians believe that you're born as a sinner and that if you die as a baby or die as an unbaptized person, that you will go to hell.
You know, when you say most Christians, there's some reason where you might be able to say what he's saying is true, because I think Catholics do kind of believe that, something like that. I'm not too sure. But it's certainly not the case that most Protestants believe that. I certainly do not believe that. And I don't even know. Even Catholics, I'm not sure about that. Like, the Catholics really believe that? I don't know. But anyway, I think they did at one point. I'm not sure if it's still the case.
That you're born as a sinner and that if you die as a baby or die as an unbaptized person, that you will go to hell. And I am against this, okay? I personally reject. Now, most Baptists still accept sinful nature, but they just believe that babies go to heaven for some reason, even though they still believe in a sinful nature. But I wholeheartedly reject the concept of sinful nature, right? Now,
this is the thing. Like, this is what he's not understanding. This is a literal heresy to reject this idea of a sinful nature. Because if you don't have a sinful nature, then it's like possible for us to be saved or to be perfect without Jesus, you know? That's why people think of this view, this no sinful nature view, as a heresy. It's called Pelagianism.
Even though they still believe in a sinful nature. But I wholeheartedly reject the concept of
Yeah, that's true.
nature.
I mean, he does have like he is crossing a lot. Like, he doesn't seem to understand it. Like, as with many concepts that Hood explains, he just doesn't understand them. But he explains them as if he fully understands them and he's got it all figured out. And so his listeners are going to listen to him and say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," and so they just believe him, right? But this is foolishness. But what he's saying right now, anyway, let's hear him out.
Right now,
yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, like, babies are sinful. I'm sorry. Like, this is the thing, dude. I understand there's some kind of age of accountability, and I understand babies don't understand good and evil and stuff, right? But if you think about what a baby, what their mind is like, right? They're like psychopaths. They're like completely selfish. They have no thought of anyone else's needs but their own, and that's totally fine. I'm not saying babies need to have some kind of moral agency or anything. I'm just saying that the idea that babies are totally sinless or something, it's not really true. It's just that we don't consider them the same way that we do adults when they sin, but they do sin.
Reason, even though they still believe in a sinful nature. But I wholeheartedly reject the concept of sinful nature, right? Now, just like most Christians today, people back then believed in some kind of sinful nature too. And specifically, what they believed is that if someone was born with some kind of illness or some kind of sickness or some kind of congenital disease, right, that they were basically a sinner from birth or born in sin, and they were being punished for their sin. And even many Calvinists, many Catholics, they believe this today, that, oh, well, the reason why people are born with sicknesses or why children die at an early
Anyway, I don't think too many Calvinists say this, what he's trying to say right now. But if you look at what Jesus is saying here in John, the disciples, what they say here in John chapter 9, verse 2, which I'll just show you this quickly so we can discuss this quickly. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was born blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, if you'll notice this, this is not saying that this person had a sin nature or anything of the kind, right? It's nothing to do with that. What they're asking Jesus is this person blind because of a sin he committed or a sin that his parents committed? And you can think about what exactly do they mean by that? So they might be suggesting that God, knowing that this person was going to sin in his life in the future, or that he has some sinful ideas or something, knowing that God cursed him with blindness before he was even born. That might have been what the disciples were thinking there. I'm not too sure. And then the other thought is that, okay, maybe the disciples, what they're asking is this person blind because his parents committed a sin? All right. Those are the two options here. Either the person committed some sin in his life that caused God to cause him to be born blind, or his parents did. Neither of these have anything to do with the idea of a sin nature or anything like that, right? So Hood is completely twisted again, as he always does, as he almost always does. Whenever I see this person interpret a Bible verse, he puts some weird ideas that he has in his head into the Bible that's not actually there. And that's what he's doing with this one. And so this is all he ever does. All right. But anyway, Jesus says, neither has this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. So what Jesus is saying is that this person is blind not because of anything he did or anything his parents did, but because God wanted to use this person's blindness for his glory, so that the works of God will be made manifest in him, that is, made apparent, made visible to the world through him. All right, that's all that Jesus said. That's all the disciples said. That's all that Jesus said. So Hood trying to tie in this whole sin nature, original sin, whatever he's talking about, that's not what this verse is about. It's got nothing to do with that. So once again, this is part of the reason why you shouldn't study the Bible like this, like where you kind of put your ideas into it. They call it eisegesis. You're supposed to try to take the text. What does the text say? And take the ideas out of the text only, not out of your head. But he's literally just implanting his ideas into the text, which are not there. Anyway, tell me if you guys can hear it, because sometimes this thing won't hear, the sound won't work.
early ages because these children are sinners, right? That's what they'll say. And the apostles themselves, they were basically a sinner from birth, sickness or some kind of congenital disease, right? That they were basically a sinner from birth or born in sin, and they were being punished for their sin. And even many Calvinists.
No, once again, that's not what the disciples were asking, and that's not what they're discussing here. And so this person is just like, he's completely misrepresenting what the Bible actually says there. Notice he doesn't show you the scripture, right? He just reads it to them and he just starts talking at them. So if they don't have their Bible open, if they're not literally sitting there with their Bible open, that's already out of their head now. He read something to them and now he's just talking at them, right? He's just telling his version of what that means, which is not what the text says. So this is why I dislike the way you teach Friendly Hood. If you don't get it yet, as I explained, every time I look at one of your videos, any one of your videos, anytime I ever look at them, we find numerous mistakes like this, where you demonstrate that you don't know how to read the Bible, and you demonstrate that you just like to put your own ideas into the Bible that aren't there.
many Catholics, they believe this today.
Thanks, bro.
That, oh, well, the
Thanks.
reason why people are born with sicknesses or why children die at an early age is because these children are sinners, right? That's what they'll say.
Okay, so I don't know if Catholics say that. I'm not sure that's part of their doctrine or anything. I don't think it is, right? I think they're a little bit more reasonable than that. Like they're very, I mean, look, whatever you want to say about the Catholics, their theology is very well thought out, you know? So they don't have a lot of these like weird things. Actually, they do have a lot of weird things. Don't get me wrong, they do have a lot of weird things, but they don't say stuff like that too often. I'm not aware of where this is in Catholic doctrine, but maybe he could point it out. But once again, he's just saying stuff. Like you see, when I show you, when I tell you stuff, right? At least I try to say stuff that it's very, very factually, obviously true. You can easily look it up, or I'll try to show you a reference. If you can't easily look it up, I'll try to show you, or I'll show you in the Bible. But this person, he'll just read a Bible thing to them, and then he just start talking at them. And there's a bunch of stuff in his head that's not even factually true.
Were being punished for their sin. And even many Calvinists, many Catholics, they believe this today. That, oh, well, the reason why people are born with sicknesses or why children die at an early age is because these children are sinners, right? That's what they'll say. And the apostles themselves also believe this. And they ask, Master, who sinned?
No. Once again, they're not saying it because they're born. They're not trying to say that he was born a sinner. What they're saying is that they asked him, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind, right? So obviously they know that the person didn't commit a sin in the womb. So they're probably, I'm just suggesting this to you. I think that the disciples are suggesting that this person was going to sin in his life, and so God struck him blind for that reason. That's what they're kind of suggesting in their question. I don't think they necessarily knew or not. They're asking the question, right? I don't think they had some kind of well thought out theology of this, and they're just telling Jesus. They're asking him the question. All right, so they had this idea. Once again, it's the idea that he sinned. He committed a sin. It's not that he was born sinful or a sinful nature or anything like that. So Hood is just, I'm sorry, Hood, you're just reading your theology into the text. This is the exact opposite of how we're supposed to read the Bible. And this is really bad. And I'm sorry, like you don't seem to get how when I tell you these things, I'm just trying to help you also. And it is very serious. I'm not just like saying this because it's a joke. It's very serious what you're doing. This is not good.
To cause this man to be born blind? Is it because of his own sinful nature, or is it because of his parents' sins? So the sinful nature believer would answer their question and say, well, obviously, it's because of the sinful nature that we have passed down all the way from Adam to us today. And he was born as a sinner, and God is punishing him for his sin by making him blind. This is
okay, but this first of all, that's not the sinful nature idea. That's called original sin. So that's a different doctrine. I don't know why you keep saying sinful nature. That's a different doctrine. So I've already said that in another video I made about this guy. So I doubt he watched it, or maybe I don't even know what he did. Who knows, right? Probably not. But look what he's saying here.
To cause this man to be born blind. Is it because of his own sinful nature, or is it because of his parents' sins?
No. Once again, it doesn't say that it's because of his sinful nature. It said, who did sin? This man or his parents that he was born blind. So in either case, the disciples' question is asking, did this man commit a sin that caused him to be born blind, or was it his parents that committed a sin that caused him to be born blind? It has nothing to do with the sinful nature or anything inherited or anything like that. There's nothing to do with that. But Hood has just installed his theology into this text so that he can explain it in this false way that isn't what the Bible is talking about.
So the sinful nature believer would answer their question and say, Well, obviously, it's because of the sinful nature that we have passed down all the way from Adam to us today. And he was born as a sinner, and God is punishing him for his sin. But
No, no, sinful nature people. First of all, sinful nature people, that would not be what we would believe, because we don't think people are punished for having a sinful nature. They're punished for sins, right? And also, anyway, this is just ridiculous. Nothing that he's saying is actually what people who believe in the sinful nature doctrine say. So it's just complete nonsense. What he's saying is just complete nonsense. I hope you guys get how ridiculous this is. Like, I don't
by
know.
making him blind. This is what the sinful nature believers think. But what does Jesus say? What does the Bible say about this issue? Well, listen to this. Jesus answered and said, "Neither has this man sinned, nor his parents, but the works of God should be made manifest in him. I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night comes when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." So, Jesus says the real reason why this man has this issue is not because he was a sinner in the womb. It's not because his
Again, that's not what the disciples asked him about. Okay, they did not suggest that. And you're just making this up. You're trying to tie this Bible verse into your personal theological dogfight that you have, where you think the sinful nature doctrine is heresy, and then you're twisting this Bible verse to try to make some argument that you have in your life. But that's not what he's talking about at all, right? So you should stop this. This is not good.
parents sinned and caused him to be punished for their sin. Rather, it's because it's an opportunity for God to show his power when he heals this blind man. And all people with all different kinds of disabilities, with all different kinds of issues, the reason why God allows them to be born that way is so that God can heal them. And this is why it's so important.
Well, now he's saying something else. You see, that's not what Jesus said either. Jesus is not saying that everybody who has a disability is born so that God can heal them and then they'll know the glory of God. That's what Jesus said about this guy. Because this guy is literally going to be healed by Jesus and is going to be in the Bible, and lots of people are going to witness it. And it's like a big story that helps to glorify God and build up the church. But Jesus is not suggesting that everyone who's ever been born disabled is for the glory of God. That's not what he's saying here.
And caused him to be punished for their sin. Rather, it's because it's an opportunity for God to show his power when he heals this blind man. And all people with all different kinds of disabilities, with all different kinds of issues, the reason why God allows them to be born that way is so that God can heal them. And this is why it's so important to believe.
But what about other people that God doesn't heal? Like, aren't there tons of people that are born blind, born disabled, and then God does not heal them? They die in that same state. Aren't there many thousands of people like that? Millions, if not? Like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. And maybe he's saying that, oh, God's going to heal them spiritually or something like that. Maybe that's what he's saying. But if that were what he's saying, that would require some more explanation, because he's using this example from the Bible where God literally heals this guy, right? So I don't know. Maybe I sound like I'm being nitpicky here, but this is actually pretty bad. This is pretty bad. This is pretty unhinged and weird.
In the gifts of the Spirit, God, man. And all people with all different kinds of disabilities, with all different kinds of issues, the reason why God allows them to be born that way is so that God can heal them. And this is why it's so important to believe in the gifts of the Spirit. Because if you don't believe in the gifts of the Spirit, if you don't believe that God blesses Christians with the ability to do things like healings or other different spiritual gifts.
Okay, so now he's trying to say that because of his bizarre and ridiculous interpretation of John 9, that this is why it's important for us as Christians today to believe in the gifts of the Spirit, which of course we do, of course we all do. But now he's trying to suggest that you have to believe that people still get the gift of healing. Or it seems like that's what he's saying, right? Let's hear him out. But he goes on to pretty much say that. And it's like, I don't know, like once again, it's another doctrine that this person doesn't understand, but he just teaches as if he does. Like, dude, we don't believe that anyway. He doesn't understand. This is what they call, there's this doctrine called secessionism, right? In secessionism, people, I believe in secessionism, or cessationism, I should say. They believe that the gifts of the Spirit, although the gifts of the Spirit are still in effect, there's some that are called apostolic gifts, like healing, prophecy, speaking in tongues, and those type of things. That those are no longer part of our Christian experience. That they occurred in the first century with the apostles and Jesus, and then they don't occur anymore. Okay, that's what we call cessationism. That's the doctrine held by most Christians and for example, me. And then you have this person, I guess he's trying to say that cessationism is wrong and that we should believe in the gifts of healing and stuff like this. But let's hear him out.
God allows them to be born that way is so that God can heal them. And this is why it's so important to believe in the gifts of the Spirit. Because if you don't believe in the gifts of the Spirit, if you don't believe that God blesses Christians with the ability to do things like healings or other different spiritual gifts, then you're saying that basically God just allows these people to suffer for absolutely no reason.
Okay. So now he's trying to say that if we don't believe in the gifts of healing and those type of things, that we somehow think that disabled people and other people who suffer from sicknesses and stuff like this, that we're just saying that God does that for no reason. So this is a kind of bizarre thinking that happens when you try to think about theology and you don't understand it. Theology is very complex. I'll just let you know, Hood. And it's not something to be just dabbled in like this. Like you don't have a clue what you're talking about. Every time you mess with one theological principle, right? It cascades through your whole theology all throughout the whole Bible, because that's what they call systematic theology. You need to have a theology that is systematic throughout the whole Bible, that has no contradictions. Now, I'm not saying any of us necessarily have that, right? But what I'm saying to you is that if you make one error in your theology, there will be all these logical consequences of that error that will spread out through your whole theological system. And that's why you have to be very careful before you make these kind of statements, because what you're saying right now is theologically incorrect, and it's going to lead to all these other false beliefs. What you're saying right now is that we have to believe in, we have to believe that the gifts are still going on, healing and stuff like that. Otherwise, we think God causes people to be sick and stuff like this for no reason. But that's not true. It's just not true. What you're saying is not true. You don't have a clue about these things. You don't have one single clue about what you're talking about. And this is really bad.
To do things like healings or other different spiritual gifts, then you're saying that basically God just allows these people to suffer for absolutely no reason. So, and that's not what Jesus says, right? When he had thus spoken, now this is crazy. This is crazy what Jesus does. This is literally insane. When Jesus had thus spoken, he spat on the ground. Oh my gosh. And he made clay of the spittle. So he mixes the dirt with his spit. And then
Look at this. One of this guys, right? I didn't know we have a spiritual gift when we believe on Christ. Now, of course, that's true. We do have a spiritual gift. Everyone who believes in Christ will have certain spiritual gifts. Okay. But that doesn't mean that, first of all, it doesn't mean that you have to believe in healing and tongues and stuff, first of all. And secondly, anyway, whatever. The fact is, This guy just explained that thing is the weirdest way possible.
Oh my gosh. And he made clay of the spittle. So he mixes the dirt with his spit. And then he puts the clay into the man's eyes and says, "Go all the gifts."
Anyway, this is dumb. So, all right, I think we've established that Hood thinks that if you don't believe in the spiritual gifts such as healing and tongues, and like those kind of apostolic gifts, that those still occur today. If you don't believe in that, that there's something wrong with your theology, and that you're blaming God for the bad things that happen to people, or something like that, right? That's what he was saying. So that's wrong, Hood. All right. And I just want you to understand something. First of all, okay, I don't believe that people have the gift of healing the way Paul or other people in the church did back then, where they could literally just go up to somebody and say, "You're healed," and then they would be healed. All right. I don't believe that that still occurs. Okay. However, I do believe, I think later on you start saying about how you prayed for your dad and he got better. I do believe that occurs. Okay. So I'm not trying to say that that is impossible or anything like that. That's obviously possible, that someone could pray and have their prayer granted by God, and so someone would be healed. That's different than what Paul and Peter did, where Peter just walked up to that guy in Acts 4 and he just told him to stand up, and the guy stood up, the paralyzed guy. That's very different than what you're talking about when you prayed to God for your father and your father was healed. That's a different thing. So I'm not suggesting that what happened to your father is fake or anything. I'm not saying that. I am suggesting that that doesn't mean you should believe in the gift of healing, first of all, because that's not what that you did there. That's not the gift of healing. That's you prayed and then God granted your prayer. That's different. That means you believe in God granting prayers, which is very good to believe. But that's different than believing in the gift of healing, which is, I would suggest to you, is no longer in the church. Okay. So I think you should read up on these doctrines: cessationism, original sin versus sin nature. Understand the difference. There's a difference there. Okay. We don't believe in original sin. We believe in the sin nature. It's different. And also your explanation of John chapter 9 is dumb. It makes no sense. You just completely butchered that thing. Okay. So stop doing what you're doing. This is confusing and weird.